Between Sessions. My name is Eboni Harris.
And I'm Eliza Bokeem, and we are two brown chicks changing the face of therapy on both sides of the couch. Yes.
Welcome. Today we are joined by Miss Sahar Paz, and we are going to talk about owning your voice. But before, we're going to talk about our happy hour that we have.
Oh, yes, because if we don't do it now,
we will forget. Yes.
Yeah, we have our Melanin and Mental Health mixer happy hour that we like to host. We do it quarterly now, but really we're just inviting all of the local Houston therapists, mental health advocates, students, or you just want to come out and meet us because we want to meet you.
Yes.
Join us tomorrow. It's not tomorrow. It's Friday. It's only Thursday today.
Today's Wednesday.
Today it's raining hard outside.
That's the excuse. That's the reason.
I'm in sleep mode. So Friday, we are having happy hour at Phil and Derek's, and it's going to be fun. It's always a lot of fun to meet the community, yes. And some of the feedback that we often get is like, oh, I'm considering coming to therapy, and I wanted to come and meet some therapists. So if that's you, becoming a therapist, yeah. Other therapists that want to connect with other Black and brown therapists that are out here advocating for our communities. Yes, come on out.
I did want to quickly just talk about in October we will be in LA.
Yes.
For the Therapy Reimagined conference as well. They do a happy hour on Friday, so we'll be there. It won't be our happy hour. We did that last year, but this year we'll just be hanging out there. So if you're in LA, also feel free to stop by the Therapy Reimagined happy hour or come to the conference and see us speak. We're going to talk about racism in the therapy room. It should be right. It should be an interesting talk. We're excited to do this 60-minute talk.
I know.
Gosh, about racism, and so it's gonna be fun. So if you're in LA,
talk on
it's gonna be a fun, deep conversation.
It's gonna be much needed conversation, yes. And there will be a lot of fun also that weekend.
Yes. So the conference is October 18th and 19th, and you can go to second.therapyreimagined.com to sign up for that conference. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So. Thank you so much, Sahar, for being here. We appreciate you, and we're excited to hear more about your story and who you are and how you even came on this path of owning your voice. So just tell us a little bit about you and what do you do?
Hello. And first of all, thank you both for doing this consistently and regularly and showing us what mental health and emotional intelligence can look like. So thank you for impacting our community here in Houston and abroad. That's really the rhythm of my life. So my name is Sahar Paz. My first name literally means when night meets day, which is a very fancy way to say dawn. So for all the dawns out there, meet you, girl.
That's funny.
And I am the author of Find Your Voice. This came out in 2014. It's a course in emotional intelligence, and I've met many emotionally intelligent people that had tons of solutions for the world. And at the core of it all, I want to bring the world inner peace. That's how I feel like I will change it. And I know I can't do that alone. So Find Your Voice has pivoted to Own Your Voice, which is a personal branding firm in Houston, because I want to get behind other conscious leaders, because I know my voice, my message, and my story can't reach everyone. Mm-hmm. So I champion other voices to make social impact.
That's so awesome.
I love it.
Yes, and especially that just aligns, and we actually are going to be a part of your summit, which we'll talk about later, but I love like how your message aligns with like mental health and therapy, and just a big part of mental health is about like who are you and how do you own it,
right?
Unapologetically. Right. So I absolutely love what you do,
and that you highlight that each of us does. That's how we know it's going to be a good show.
Right. Anytime we have technology issues,
okay. It froze up a little bit.
Yes, you did too. And
okay.
I just heard, I love when you, and then that was
I want to hear it.
Yeah. So I was saying that I love that you highlight that all of us have a voice that needs to be heard and that can contribute to this collective healing for all of us. So love what you're doing and love that we get to be part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, I know that when you talk about Find Your Voice, you say a lot of it is just CBT techniques that you've put into this book. Can you talk about how therapy has helped you find your own voice?
Yes. So for those of you who are not in the therapy world, CBT is cognitive behavior therapy, which is my voice affects my emotions, which affects my spoken voice or my decisions or ultimately the life I'm living. So I had a very traumatic upbringing, like many, many of us. And so I had found the wrong voice on the inside in a sense where at the age of 11, the image or the feeling, I should say, of peace came over when I had an image of a gun to my head. So I had a very harsh inner voice, and, we call it the inner bully, and Eliza touches on this, and I know Eboni, you do too, that the inner bully now is what was meant to protect us before. So because the first 7 years of my life were so volatile, I was in an abusive home, I grew up in a war, my fight or flight was all out of whack. My inner voice was all out of whack. Everything felt unsafe. So to keep myself safe, my inner voice would take great measures. And so therapy was instrumental in being logical, something that's not logical.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Emotions are not logical. For anyone who has PTSD, trauma, or maybe you were in your mama's belly and she was really, really stressed out. You got hooked onto those anxiety hormones, and so our fight or flight is a mess. And that can come from a million different reasons. And I had just found the wrong voice. I was in the wrong patterns, but I knew it wasn't me. And CBT really helped me get logical about the way I think, how to listen to myself. Right? Because we have 70 to 100,000 thoughts a day. Tuning into all of that, forget about it. With my New Yorker friends, they forget about it. So CBT is instrumental in my life. It is Find Your Voice. My book is CBT in layman's terms. Because I want to break the stigma. Before beautiful women like you were on the screen talking and showing, mental health, there's a lot of stigma around it, and there still is in our cultures. Our cultures as a Persian, our cultures as a Latina, as a beautiful Black woman, our cultures, right? So thank you for what you do.
Yeah.
Of course.
And I think one thing that you said, and I think we've talked about this before, in the importance of really being able to identify that inner bully or that other voice that's really a voice of fear, because I think a lot of what we also hear and talk about is trusting your intuition and trusting your gut and what's your gut telling you. And what you're talking about also is how someone who has a lot of trauma, how it can be really difficult to kind of sift through, well, which voice am I really listening to? Or can I even hear, my intuition or that inner guide when this other part of me is just so fear-based?
Yeah. Definitely. And so really just determining which one is the part that's here to help me in a different way. Because like you said, Sahar, the bully was there for a reason.
Right.
And so
to protect us, got you through something at one time. It's our coping skills. It's what we do to survive. It's just that when we're no longer in a life-threatening situation, those coping skills are no longer helping us.
Right. So you went through this journey for yourself. What inspired you to want to help other people find their voice?
I was doing it regardless. So I was working in finance at the age of 25 and trying to, pep up my people and talk to them what's holding them back, didn't like the world of finance, and finally broke past some of the patterns within myself and went back to school because I gave myself permission to know I'm smart enough. So at the age of 30, I graduated with a marketing degree and pivoted from finance to fashion. And even there, I felt like I was using fashion as a catalyst for people to find their voice. And what that culminated to was running a nonprofit for 5 years. So I wrote fashion programs for high school students, and I saw them, GPAs went up. We got scholarships. We're going to college. But when the programs ended, the emotional turbulence was back. And for me, fashion began to feel fickle. Like, yes, it's your armor, but then what?
Yeah.
How are you going to just not more than appear, but be? And I really had to take a step back to think about what's the building block of change. And for me, it was the inner voice. When I went back to my own healing. And at that point, I am in my mid-30s, and a big breakthrough for me in my healing came at 25. So I am at least 7-8 years past this point where I had this total breakdown and did the CBT for about 9 months. A total breakdown means 3 suicidal attempts. was. So anyhow, I came back to what is the building block for change, and it was our voice. Literally everything is a verbal exchange. Everything starts with words. Even if you don't talk to anybody and you're an introvert like myself, like you're talking to yourself, you know? So for me, it was a natural part of what I did and do. And I decided rather than killing myself to help people find their voice inside organizations or titles that I was in, why don't I just make this the body of my work? And why don't I just stop using fashion or friendship or happy hours to empower people and just get down to the, you know, to the nitty gritty, and that's talking to people about their voice and how they interact with it and how they use it.
Yeah, love it. That's great.
Love it.
You're very open and very much sharing you're very open in sharing your story, obviously, because it inspires other people. And you talk a lot about having PTSD. What do you think are some misconceptions about PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder?
Veterans, it's going to make you crazy. You might go and kill somebody. Oh my God, lock that hoe up. No, sorry.
Yes, you're good.
It's not. It's not. You know, Dr. Brittany Barreto, she's a geneticist. She is a client and now a dear friend. She always says PTSD makes us better leaders. And the real deal is there's a lot of stigma around it. And it's not just for war veterans. It's for anyone who's trauma.
Right.
And that trauma may be an experience of just visual, like seeing an experience, or something that happened from another person. It can be many things.
Right.
But it is, you know, they think that you're crazy or you're making it up. Just let it go. You're unsafe. You're unstable. But the truth is, you're so keenly aware.
Right.
You know, this makes you a better leader. This makes you a better partner. This makes you a better lover, depending on your trauma. So I would say the stigma that it's for war veterans and that we're crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that you highlighted, I think, one of the big ones that I often hear, yes, that you have, that it's something that's specifically for someone who's gone through war, but that you can outthink it, or that you can out-talk it, you know, or you can just think positive, just get over it, like set a goal, get it out of your head, and it's just not how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love that too. When my PTSD is cleared, I'm like, this is so illogical and so crazy. Like, come on, Sahar. But I have to just be tender and understand this is my nervous system.
Right.
This is brain telling my system, and my voice is just a translator of that. And my choice comes in that moment of I can be aware of it and let it be, or I can let it control me. And I get in survival mode and I get defensive, or I isolate, you know, and then my world becomes illogical. So I think it makes us more aware, those who do have PTSD. You know, it's a gift and a curse.
Definitely. And I like that you're talking about people that, like you said, outside of war, even huge traumatic events, right? Like there are certain things people are like, oh yeah, you would have PTSD from that.
Yeah.
But sometimes you don't think about it. I know people that have PTSD because when they gave birth to their child, their child had major health issues and was on the verge of death and all. And so since then, they don't feel safe, and they always are concerned about this child, and they have some thoughts that may not be. And so I think it's important to recognize that it doesn't have to be this huge world event happening for you to have trauma and for you to have PTSD as well.
It's an overwhelming event. And what's traumatic for me may not be traumatic to Ebony or to you, right? And vice versa. So it's just anytime that we experience some overwhelming event where we're left feeling powerless, something happens in our nervous system, we're not able to go through the whole process of releasing that which our body feeds us to survive a threat. And so it becomes this untangling of all of that.
And I think what it makes me think of is in Black and brown communities, how there are certain, depending on the community, there may be certain acts of gun violence and things like that. But we don't look at that as trauma or PTSD. But if there's a school shooting, then everybody rally the troops and we got to go into the school. We don't recognize how it also impacts other people, even if there's one person getting shot. That's still. And
then it's not even a person that you know.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Like as a mother of young brown boys, who are starting to learn how to drive, I'm terrified. You know, like I'm terrified. And so, it's just, and we can have vicarious trauma. And then they've done a lot of research to also show that Black and brown communities, we have intergenerational trauma that we're just born with. You know, because of what our ancestors, our relatives, you know, have gone through. So, it's very real.
Yeah. So can you tell us what are some ways that you think that friends and family can better help or support someone who has PTSD?
Well, as I just said, it feels illogical, and for a lot of us, we know it, so there is some shame. I think it's really important to understand people's triggers around the PTSD, right? And sometimes people think the triggers are a direct reflection of what happened. For example, for me, we could look at it in two ways. If I think about the war, which I hate to say that because it's a stigma of PTSD, but every 4th of July, I hate it.
Mhm.
Firecrackers sound like bombings. Hate it. I know the next day I'm going to be nervous for about 72 hours.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense, kind of a direct correlation.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the abuse I suffered as a young person. Sometimes seeing a person my age, sometimes smelling Cheetos or orange soda. So it's about who that person was at the time of the stress.
Right.
And those things can be triggers as well. It's not that it's always a reflection of what caused that stress, right? For that mom, it could be going to a doctor's appointment with her kid can bring that back on. Or seeing another pregnant mom that she doesn't even know, right? So it's understanding what their triggers are. And then in this time of being, we know that it's not our reality, and we understand that we're safe now. We may need you to be a broken record about it, or we may need you to help us weigh, though. I love weighing my emotions, 30% of this feels like this, 20% of it feels like this, and just getting real logical. And talking about it and getting out of my head and into my body, whatever that means. Let's go for a walk, honey. Okay, can you help me chop these things in the kitchen? Let's clean this up together. I don't know, a million things. But let the person talk, let them get out of their body. And as a caregiver, especially if you are male, I know that you come with solution-minded and you want to fix it, but you can't.
Yeah.
We appreciate all of you caregivers, all of your partners, sisters, brothers, mothers, kids. Watch us. We thank you. And we just ask for your patience and to take care of yourself. If you need a minute, and my energy's rubbing up on you, you take a time out. And at the end of the day, it will help you bring your communication closer with those. But to sum it up, understand the triggers don't look like a direct reflection. Be aware of the triggers for those folks in your life. Be patient. Help them weigh it out. Help bring a logical structure to this illogical situation.
Right.
And take care of yourself. Be patient with yourself.
Yeah, great tips.
Awesome. I think a big part of it is the acceptance of the other person's experiences. And so sometimes as someone who loves you and supports you, it's like, well, no, that doesn't make sense. Like, just do this, or just think this, or just, and so some of it is just like, accept that my experiences are my experiences, even if they feel illogical to you. If you know that I'm struggling with some type of trauma, you have to be the person that's like, okay, I get it, I hear you.
Right.
So, all right. So I want to get into the summit that we are excited to be a part of. Talk about like where that came from and just tell us all about the summit and how do people sign up and things like that.
Oh, well, sometimes you do some big-ass things for yourself. That's my insight.
Yes.
Last year, I turned 40, and I was damned if my inner bully was going to be in my way. And for the lack of mentorship that I had in professional life, I said, I'm going to put every woman and man that I wish was my mentor, wish was my sponsor on this stage. And they happen to be mostly people of color. And I happened to have rented a stage in Greater Houston Partnership to make a freaking statement. And we could see it and we could be it. I think we've seen the changing tides. I mean, you two women are an example of that. But how do we voice it? How do we voice it to ourselves? How do we voice it to others? And that was really the time theme to Own Your Voice Summit. And this year we're going virtual. After writing Find Your Voice, I got to travel. So a lot of my audience is not here in Houston. And they use their voices, and I love that about them. So make it virtual, make it accessible to us. And after burning out the third time at 33, I really had to figure out how am I going to pay it forward without burning myself out. And that's what this is. Every year, this is Fuel for My Soul and virtual mentorship for those other folks. The 4 areas are self-awareness, which is what you two ladies beautifully spoke about, and I'm so thankful. Then conscious leadership. So how do we take that awareness into our professional life? And then personal branding, because I believe that your personal brand is your champion. There's no better way to find and own your voice and know yourself than branding yourself. This isn't about ego or being an imposter. And lastly, marketing. mindful marketing, because the messages that we put out there control our minds. And good news, right now we have Michael Phelps coming out and talking about how cool therapy is, right? Mm-hmm. Right now we have Common writing a book about being sexually assaulted. Right now, mindful marketing, it's the time, because the stigma of being brown, the stigma of being crazy, the stigma of therapy has been beaten to our head, and we are breaking that.
Right.
With every brand, with every message, with every podcast, right? So Own Your Voice Summit is that. How, what is your voice? How can you own it? And ultimately what you have to say will impact the world.
Awesome.
Love it.
We're excited.
So excited.
Be a part of this, to share it with other people, and to have people just hear all of this great content that you're creating.
I know. I can't wait to watch all the other modules. I'll be in there taking notes.
So what are your favorite resources, books, podcasts that you would recommend to people that are starting their journey on finding their voice?
Well, I got to plug my own book.
Of course.
Talk about imposter syndrome. I wasn't sure if, I'm like, oh my God, if what I wrote in here doesn't work. In 2016, I was assaulted. I was pushed. I was pinned. I was choked. And I had to go back to the words in my own book to really, it's a course in emotional intelligence. So that did actually help me. Another book that I love is called The Female Brain. It really helps me understand, hey, what's happening to my body, chemicals, and so that it's just, going back to when your fight or flight is really pumped up. You need to figure out ways to learn and understand yourself, and I'm a big, big lover of the brain. So those are my two books that I go to. And The Road Between Should or Must. I can't remember the author's name right now, but The Road Between Should and Must. It's a really good book. Another self-reflection of what should I do, what must I do, and the pressures we put on ourselves.
Right.
Love it.
Awesome. And of course, as always, we'll have these books with links in the show notes so that you can support Sahar and then check out the other books as well. Tell us why you're dope.
Ooh! I believe this question is, tell us why you're a dope therapist. And I'm going to say I'm a therapist activate, ambassador. I can't even talk right now. I'm so excited.
Yes.
I'm a dope human being because I want folks to get out of their own way. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, that's what you guys do. Mm-hmm. I believe on change on a grassroots level. Mm-hmm. And I guess the essence of why I'm dope is I believe hugely in collaboration and championing other people's voices. Yeah. And I think therapy is so dope because there's no better place to get to know yourself.
Yeah.
We all need a neutral third party. It's not for the crazy. And one thing that Eliza said, I think both of you said in the summit actually, was it's not like you're going to sit there and just go over your pain and the problem and what happened. It's very solution based, and the stigma is not that. So I would say what's dope about me is I want to break the biases. I want you to think in a new way, and mostly by being self-aware and loving yourself. So finding your voice, and go to therapy if you need to do that.
Yes. We appreciate you so much. You're doing so much good work out there to really help people find their own voice, help people take control of their life and recognize that they can have the type of life that they want to have. And,
right.
I love that.
And modeling it for them, how it's done. And I think your authenticity and your honesty about this is an ongoing journey, right? It's not, okay, went to therapy, good, done.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right? So we appreciate that. You're creating a lot of solutions also.
Yes. So let everybody know, how do they continue to follow you? How do they sign up for the summit or newsletters or whatever, so they can make sure they're aware of everything you have going on?
I would love for you guys to come and check out Eboni and Eliza at ownyourvoicesummit.com. So ownyourvoicesummit.com. It's free. It's virtual, so you get a TEDx-style presentation every morning, every day in October. Mm-hmm. And I am on every social media channel as Sahar Paz, Saharpaz.
Awesome.
Love it.
Of course, again, everything been in the show notes. We want to make sure we make this very easy for you to connect with Sahar. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. Check us out at melaninmentalhealth.com to see previous episodes of Between Sessions, to find a dope therapist. There are plenty of dope therapists across the U.S. that are on the site, as well as checking out some of our dope merch. Why can't I
forget about it?
Dope merchandise. Right, just forget about it. Dope merchandise. And again, we hope to see you this Friday at the happy hour. Melanin and Mental Health across social media. Melanin Health on Twitter. And that is all I'm going to say.
Yes! Stay safe out there, Houston. Yes. It's a rainy,
wet
tropical storm, all of that. Yes, stay safe.
All right, bye.